Hello my friends, don't mind the laundry please, everybody has to do the laundry, even soldiers have to do their laundry and it's here, it's drying, let's move on. What is the war that your fathers or yourself fought in? Most of the wars we talk about on this channel, oh my grandfather was supported, your grandfathers fought in that war, or it happened even before and nobody's even alive who remembers the war. But oh, not this one. We watched Desert Storm Day 1 Air War. But now we're going to watch Desert Storm Day 1 Ground War. You yourself, some of the viewers actually were there. I've read the comments. We have some veterans here, Desert Storm veterans. Put it in the comments if you actually were in Iraq and took part of the Desert Storm. This is one of the biggest military operations which everybody remembers still. Because it happened only a decade ago, more than a decade. A bit more, but still, it's so recent. As always, my friends, before we dive into it, I have Patreons to name you. We acknowledge the patrons on this channel because they are the reason I can keep going. Sometimes YouTube revenue fluctuates up and down, sometimes very much down. Don't know why, don't ask, nobody knows why, but then patrons come in. They help this channel a lot, they help me a lot, so I want to name them. First of all, we have Paul Pirkebeck. Mr. Pirkebeck, thank you for becoming a Patreon. Secondly, we have Raymond Partida. Partida, ooh, and you are a special friend because Raymond pledged a very big amount. It doesn't really happen on my channel. Usually, very rarely somebody does that, but Raymond did it. Very big amount. So Raymond, thank you for supporting the channel. It really helps me out. You have done something great. You can be proud about yourself. Let's give it up for Raymond. Finally, we have Patrick Guerrero. Damn it. Patrick Guerrero. Guerriero. I mess up the name sometimes. Guerriero. Well, thank you, Mr. Guerriero, for becoming a Patreon. You want to be generous? If you feel generous, the Patreon link is in the description below. Alright, my friends. Let's see what happened on the ground. Boots on the ground. Desert Storm Day 1.
Late on the 23rd of February 1991, 10 Special Forces reconnaissance teams of the US 3rd and 5th Special Forces Groups crossed the border into Iraq by helicopter. They are to join Green Beret, Delta Force and British SAS operatives already in Iraq. In just a few hours' time, the ground invasion to liberate Kuwait will begin, and these invisible eyes in the desert will report on Iraqi division movements. Operation Desert Storm has been ongoing for 5 weeks. A 35-nation-strong coalition formed as a response to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait has been engaged in...
Honestly, it seems like such an overkill. 35-nation-strong coalition. It's the most powerful nations of the world at that time, Western powers, combined against a third world country. Which is weird to me a little bit, but I guess everybody needed to test out their war equipment and there was no big wars for a long time and militaries needed to brush off some dust. So yeah, this was a good training field. I'm sorry if I offend a lot of people with my comments here. I hope I don't offend any veterans. I do hope. If I do, then forgive me. I am just a soldier, boots on the ground. I might not know the big picture here.
Massive bombing campaign against Saddam Hussein's Iraq. With an average of 2,500 bombing sorties per day, the command and control structures and logistics lines to Saddam's army in the east have been severely degraded. More recently, the bombing has shifted towards Iraqi troops themselves, aiming to soften them up and weaken their resolve to fight such a superior enemy. Coalition Navy ships have also blasted Iraqi positions near the Kuwaiti coast with naval gunfire. President George H.W. Bush issues a final ultimatum to Saddam Hussein: leave Kuwait by 8 p.m. on the 23rd of February or face a ground invasion. Like the ultimatum preceding the air campaign, this is no bluff, and G-Day, the beginning of the ground invasion, is scheduled to begin at 4 a.m. on the 24th. General North
4 a.m. every soldier, like thousands, tens of thousands of soldiers ready on the border. I watched the movie Jarhead. It was a really good movie. I liked it, and the comments said that you guys liked it also. But they stood ready there, and the movie showed how the ground forces sometimes didn't get to do much at all because the air forces did all the killing, and the US ground forces, they wanted some action. Well, I It seemed true. Their power is so effective in the coalition side. But those ground forces, tens of thousands of them, had been waiting on the border for days and weeks in the Iraqi heat. And finally they got the green light. 4 a.m. Go over the border and kick some ass. But unfortunately by then there was not much ass to be kicked because the planes did it all.
Norman Schwarzkopf, Commander-in-Chief of Coalition Forces, arrives at Central Command in Riyadh. Coalition forces are split into 5 corps along the front line. On the west flank, 18 Airborne Corps, made up of 4 divisions. The French Daguet, a light armoured division of tanks, recon and armoured infantry, including 2 regiments of the prestigious and recently battle-experienced French Foreign Legion. The infamous US 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions. The 82nd will support the French Daguet as motorised infantry. The 16,000 paratroopers of the 101st will ride into battle with 350 helicopters. The 24th Infantry Division and
Look at all of these vehicles, how many tons of vehicles were massed up on the border. So many. And they all are itching for battle. They're like, oh, we wanna go. Ooh, hoorah, we wanna kill. So many of them. The Iraqis stand no chance.
3rd Armoured Cavalry Regiment, bringing a combined 333 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and 333 Abrams main battle tanks.
333 Abrams! Next to the Bradleys even. No Abrams were lost in Desert Storm, as I remember correctly. No Abrams were lost, because they are so damn strong. And 300 of them, they could take down the entire country, I think. Welcome back, my friends. I'm so happy to welcome you to the Estonian Soldier hat competition. Today we have special orders, because I already looked and many of them have more than 1 hat. People are crazy for the hat. I like it. It keeps the channel going. If you don't have the hat, go and get it. For yourself, for your mother, for your father, for your sister, for your brother, and your grandmother. We have Devin Brocking. And the dude is a legend because he got 3 hats. 3, that's number 3. 1 for every color I have. City is called Orange. A fruit. Orange, and that's in Virginia. 16 points for Virginia. Ooh, that's a lot of points. Virginia, making a name for yourself. Well, Virginia already has a name for himself with the song. We have Mike Jones, or in Estonia, Mike Jonas. Ha, Mike Jonas. Well, Mike is as legendary of a dude because he also got 3 hats, but he got all 3 the same color because he hates different colors. City is called Woodbine and the state is Maryland. Interesting story. In the 11th century when the Crusaders came to Estonia to take it over from the pagans, the Pope, the Vatican Pope at that time, declared Estonia and Latvia, it was one country back then, he declared it Maryland, the land of Mary, to make it more attractable to the Crusader Knights who should go to the land of Mary and liberate the pagans and bring them to Christianity. So Estonia is Maryland in the Christian sense. So yeah, Maryland gets 3 points. We have Steven Smith. Yes, I killed your name. I apologize, Steven Smith. This dude also got a fish shirt, but he also got a hat. And I like the name of the city, I do. The city name is literally Independence. What, America, you didn't want to name the city Freedom or Democracy? Independence, yeah, it's really good. 6 points for Missouri. We have Jonathan Brush, not Bush, no, not the president's family, Brush. City is Forest Grove. I remember that city or town because many hats have gone there, Forest Grove. So I don't know how many people live there, but I think at least 6 or 7 hats have gone to Forest Grove. That's in Oregon. 6 points for Oregon. Finally we have Kenneth Vaughan. Kenneth Vaughan. Kenneth Vaughan. That's in Hugh Springs, Texas. 41 points for Texas, and Washington has gained none, unfortunately. 53 for Washington. Over 10 points divides those two states, and Washington is strongly in the lead right now, but it might not stay that way if you don't do anything about it. Thank you, my friends, for getting the hats. Thank you for giving this channel a chance, for giving this hat a chance. Let's go back to the video.
The two formations bring an armoured capability to 18 corps. 7 corps, in the centre, are the heavy armoured fist of the coalition. The US 1st and 3rd Armoured Divisions and the British 1st Armoured Division are the centrepiece of the battering ram, using Abrams and Challenger tanks. Supplementing the 3 armoured divisions are the US 1st Cavalry and 1st Infantry Divisions, and the 2nd Armoured Cavalry Regiment, with further Abrams and Bradleys, helicopter, engineering and artillery support. 1st Infantry, known as the Big Red One, were the first wave to attack Omaha Beach on D-Day in 1944.
Ooh.
7 Corps will roll across the border with 1,487 main battle tanks, 1,384 infantry fighting vehicles.
1,000 battle tanks! What? That's Blitzkrieg! That's Blitzkrieg for you! That's what the Germans did with their panzers! There's no stopping this machine! What can you do against this? Nothing.
242 attack helicopters, and 146,000 troops. East of 7 Corps, on the border with Kuwait, is Joint Forces Command North, made up of divisions of Egyptian, Saudi, Kuwaiti and Syrian armour. Marine Central Command comprises the US 1st and 2nd Marine Divisions, armed with the older M60 tanks, and a brigade from the 2nd Armoured Division. The east flank is another joint command of mechanised Arab forces from Saudi Arabia, Oman, the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Morocco and Senegal. With the Iraqi Air Force neutralised, overwhelming air power can be brought to bear with many hundreds of coalition strike and close air support aircraft, ready to react at a moment's notice. Coalition ground forces number nearly 700,000.
700,000 with over 1,500 tanks with the Blitzkrieg abilities. We have near 1 million troops, first world troops, Western powers troops, and of course the oil powers of the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Egypt and all of those countries. Well, they all have strong militaries. Against Iraq. I'm just wondering why such a strong force against a country like that? Yes, Iraqi had the 4th largest military in the world back then, but those troops were not battle hardened. They were recruits, they were, what's the common term? Newbies. Yeah, that's what you call it. This is overreaction. This is strongly an overreaction. There has to be another motive to have such a strong presence here. There has to be another motive. Maybe because the militaries of the world haven't had the experience for a long time, and the new generation of troops need some ground experience. It was a good testing ground for US new weaponry and US new tactics. Maybe? Or maybe I'm just offending a lot of veterans right now. I don't know, but this seems like like taking a huge hammer to do a haircut to somebody. Yeah, it's just the wrong tool.
The Iraqi military can't boast such firepower. Of the approximately 350,000 Iraqi troops in the region, it is estimated that 140,000 have already deserted, with another 26,000 killed in the ferocious and unhindered bombing leading up to G-Day. The 700,000 coalition troops, with modern tanks and air power, will face roughly 180,000 Iraqis, armed with tanks that mostly date from pre-1980, and with no air power.
Underpowered, undermanned, coalition forces are stronger 7-1 or 8-1, and their weaponry is stronger, their navy is stronger, their air power. What is this? What is this?
Even the most modern T-72 tanks have an effective range of just over half that of the Abrams and Challenger tanks they'll be matched against.
You can't.
Saddam has positioned his weakest divisions on the border. His elite Republican Guard divisions are positioned further north, with the Tawakalna division the nearest on the Iraq-Kuwait border. If they're to liberate Kuwait, coalition armour will have to face the Republican Guard in the desert. The coalition war plan is as follows. At 4 AM on the 24th of February, G-Day, the left and right flanks will advance into enemy territory. On the right flank, Marine Central Command and Joint Forces Command East will carefully carve entry paths through the dense minefields on the Kuwaiti border and engage the enemy beyond. On the left, the
It
mobile...
always fascinated me. If you know anything about clearing the minefields, I've seen some vehicles, they have some weird construction at the front of them, so the explosion rips through the construction but doesn't hurt the tank or the vehicle. How do they sweep the minefields? If you know anything about it, please put it in the comments. How do they clear the minefields nowadays? The ground forces. How do they do it?
18 Corps...
We had to do it with a knife.
The 101st Airborne will perform a massive helicopter assault to capture an area 155 miles behind enemy lines, named Objective Cobra, hold it, and build a forward operating base, potentially under fire. Meanwhile, the rest of 18 Corps will advance north by land. The French and 82nd Airborne will capture Objective Rochambeau, another supply route near As Salman, and then As Salman Crossroads and Airfield, so that ground supply trucks can reach the 101st further north. On G+1, the Armoured Fist of 7 Corps will advance across the Saddam line and move north. On G+2, on reaching Al-Basaya, 7 Corps will wheel right into Kuwait, where they'll face the Republican Guard en masse. The Arab forces on the right flank will have the honour of liberating Kuwait City. At 5:30 am on the 24th of February, the US Marines on the right flank advance across the border. They're immediately met with Iraqi artillery fire. Because they don't have any forward observers or helicopter support, the shells are being fired wildly at the American line, and no hits are scored. To cover their advance, Marine artillery returns fire with 140 artillery pieces and 9 multiple launch rocket artillery systems. Pairs of Marine jets bomb the enemy positions every 7.5 minutes.
No.
A deadly display
So
of superior
dead.
firepower pounds the Iraqi positions, and they very soon crumble for no US loss.
No US loss and Iraq has lost everything. The firepowers are not comparable here, not comparable.
In just 30 minutes, the Marines cover the 12 miles to the edge of the first minefield in Kuwait. 500 engineers will clear 6 individual tank-width lanes across the minefield. 3 M60 tanks fitted with specialist mine-clearing equipment known as combat engineer vehicles and a Mark 154 mine clearance launcher move to the head of each prospective lane.
Mine clearance launcher, is that the thing that shoots out a wire that lands and then the wire explodes and all of the mines explode and you can just ride through it? That is fascinating as hell. They just blow up the minefield on a tank's width and then the tanks can take that path. That's really cool. I want to see that in action.
The Mark 154 launches 3 cables laced with explosive 35 yards into the minefield. The explosive cables are then detonated, thereby detonating any mines beneath to carve a line through the field.
Cool!
After each detonation, the 3 combat engineer vehicles use ploughs and rakes to clear and smooth the route. Within 45 minutes, the first lane will open. Expecting an Iraqi counterattack within hours, none materialises, and Marines and tanks start to stream through the lanes as they open.
Awesome!
Meanwhile, on the left flank, 18 Corps have no minefield to contend with and advance into Iraq. The French Daguet are the first to cross with a brigade from 82nd Airborne. They encounter only sporadic enemy artillery fire from scattered elements of the Iraqi 45th Infantry Division, who are dispersed thinly over a wide area to defend the western flank. Coalition artillery returns fire. The American paratroopers transmit a message to their French colleagues. Side by side, French and American soldiers will write a page in history. They roll north slowly and carefully to minimise casualties. To their east...
Okay, I could understand why Allied troops are so many in numbers to minimize casualties. The firepower is so overpowered to minimize casualties. They could take the entire country and take the entire dictatorial regime down with minimalized casualties. The stronger you are, the less you lose men. Not like the Soviet Union that lost 20 million people in the Second World War because casualties were not a problem to Mr. Stalin. He sent his own people to die for the heck of it. Coalition forces don't do that. So yeah, that's maybe one reason they are so overpowered here. But I think there's another.
first wave of 106 helicopters of the 101st Airborne, known as the Screaming Eagles, sweep over the border just 10 feet from the ground. They follow a trail of radio beacons dropped by a pair of Apaches and Blackhawks during the night. The two Apaches wait for them at the objective area and engage Iraqi anti-air forces nearby. Lieutenant Colonel Richard Cody is commanding the pair, the same pilot who commanded the flight of Apaches that attacked the radar sites on day one of the air war. He was also one of the first to cross the border during the ground invasion. Before cautiously moving forward, the area in front of the French advance is blasted by artillery and airstrikes. Kiowas and French Gazelles attack enemy vehicles ahead of the front line and also
A-10s, baby!
This Vietnam-like tactic is repeated with each advance, and so progress is not the blitz-like speed that Schwarzkopf was hoping for.
Well, I'm talking, they want blitz speed, but they actually minimize casualties and be very careful. Which I'm glad, because very little Americans died. But yeah, it took down the speed if you bombed them so carefully. But still, it is effective as hell.
A nasty sandstorm and rain slows progress further. Almost immediately after engagement, encountered Iraqi forces begin to surrender. These are Saddam's weakest divisions. They're malnourished and not interested in fighting. Processing 2,000 surrendered troops slows progress even further. The French and American force continues to crawl forward. The first of the Screaming Eagles disembark from their helicopters a mile south of Objective Cobra at 8 AM. They roll 105mm howitzers out the back of the Chinooks and immediately start lobbing artillery shells at the defenders. F-16s and A-10s arrive overhead to help the Apaches hammer enemy bunkers, tanks and vehicles. Under relentless aerial bombardment, 300 Iraqis surrender just 1 hour after the first boots landed. Wave after wave of helicopters stream into Objective Cobra over the next few hours, bringing more troops, artillery, Humvees armed with wire-guided anti-tank weapons, enormous underslung rubber sacks containing a total of 1 million gallons of fuel, food, water and ammunition. The Humvees set up a defensive perimeter while the base is constructed. To the south, the French and 82nd arrive at the area of land known as Objective Rochambeau, at midday having met almost no opposition but sporadic artillery and mortar fire en route. French helicopters move in from the west and destroy 12 bunkers, 1 tank, 5 armoured personnel carriers and 8 trucks. Another pounding by artillery precedes the armoured assault on the objective, provoking another mass surrender by the defending Iraqi troops without engagement.
It wasn't even ground war. The battles were only bomb them from up above, bomb them from artillery, process the prisoners, because they surrendered en masse. And even before that, over 100,000 Iraqi forces had deserted. So it was mass desertion, mass surrender. No pitched battles, no tank to tank, no man to man battles here, not much, because it's a modern warfare. Most of the war is done by planes and artillery. So yeah, you should remember that when you go to the Marine Corps and you wanna get some Call of Duty action. Doesn't exist much. It does, but not much. Most of what people will be doing is patrolling years after years. Yes, there will be firefights, but you usually don't see your enemy. You shoot into the bushes. Covering fire is what it's called. You cover fire. 300 rounds with a machine gun, 400 rounds with a machine gun. That's cover fire. That's not shoot to kill. That's shoot in an area and maybe something will get hit, maybe not. Well, the artillery is doing the same.
The time is 2:30 PM and the French and Americans have moved into Iraq and taken their first objective, overwhelming all opposition immediately, accepting 3,500 surrenders and losing only 2 soldiers. Schwarzkopf is unhappy.
2 soldiers? To what? What happened to them? Friendly fire? I suspect friendly fire.
Happy that this walkover wasn't performed fast enough, and demands that the advance on As Salman is sped up. It's a similar situation on the right flank. M60 tanks and marines are now through the first and second layer of minefields. Artillery continues to batter enemy positions, including aircraft-directed counterfire against enemy artillery pieces. A captured Iraqi colonel describes the dispositions of his remaining forces. The minefield itself claims 9 tanks, but no Marines killed. On the left flank,
9 tanks.
a convoy of Marine vehicles is attacked.
So they are lost tanks, lost Abrams. Desert Storm had some Abrams that were lost. Minefields, they were the most effective part of the Iraqi military. Mines. Funny.
Behind by M60 tanks in a friendly fire incident.
Friendly fire!
55 rounds fired, 2 trucks and an assault vehicle are destroyed, killing 1 Marine. A strange case of luck that the tank gunnery was so poor in this case.
Yeah.
To the east of the Marines, the Arab forces of Joint Forces Command East are also through both minefields and have also met little opposition and mass surrenders. The Iraqi forces in this area are of similarly poor quality to those facing 18 Corps, made up mostly of enforced conscripts who don't want to be there, especially given that they've been thrown into such a hopeless situation against such a superior enemy. The ease and speed of the Marines' advance presents a problem for Schwarzkopf. Even before midday on G-Day, he estimates that his right flank is 8 hours ahead of schedule. The Egyptians of Joint Forces Command North on the Marines' left and the armour of 7 Corps further west are not scheduled to cross the border until the next day, G+1. However, the speed and depth of the Marines' advance has left their left flank vulnerable to attack, or worse envelopment, by Iraqi armoured divisions just west of them. Schwarzkopf makes the bold decision to move the central assault forward to today at 3 PM, just 2 hours away and 15 hours ahead of schedule. British 1st Armoured Division rushes to join the rest of 7 Corps on the front line from their staging area 60 miles behind the line. The last-minute time change carries logistical risks, but the enemy is weaker than anticipated and the advantage needs pressing. Scout helicopters begin to move into enemy territory to spot Iraqi units. Across the front line from 7 Corps, 2 brigades of the Iraqi 26th Infantry Division have set up defensive positions in the shape of a triangle looking down a slope towards the line, with mortars and towed artillery to the rear. Similarly entrenched, the 31st, 46th and 48th Infantry Divisions lie in wait northeast of them. They occupy a system of defensive fortifications, trenches, bunkers, minefields and barbed wire known as the Saddam Line. At 2:30 PM, 30 minutes before the breach is to begin, the most ferocious artillery barrage in recent history is unleashed against Iraqi positions.
Cool.
13 artillery battalions fire 11,000 rounds.
Oh.
Multiple launch rocket systems also open fire, launching rockets that travel to and dispense 650 bomblets over the target area. 10 batteries devastate the Iraqi lines with 650,000 bomblets.
After this, why should you want to fight for a dictator that forced you to go here? Why? If I was an Iraqi soldier here, I would surrender. I would surrender for sure.
The bombardment lasts until 3 PM, and 7 Corps crosses the line into enemy territory. The 334 Abrams and 224 Bradleys of the 1st Infantry Division are the first to engage, firing fearsome volleys of rounds into the Iraqi trenches and bunker positions. For the first time, the defenders don't surrender and return fire with tanks, artillery, anti-tank guns.
Okay, that's a battle,
RPGs, albeit disorganized and inaccurate. 2nd Armored Cavalry lead the left flank's advance and meet similar resistance deeper in Iraq. Under fire, combat engineers hastily clear lanes across the thin minefield, and vehicles of the 1st Infantry move across. On reaching the Iraqi trenches, the Bradley infantry fighting vehicles don't dismount their infantry to clear them. Instead, armoured bulldozers turn left and right and move up the edge of the trenches, using ploughs to push the piled up sand and dirt back into the trenches, filling them in.
Ooh, okay.
This tactic is controversial, because 150 Iraqis who don't surrender are buried alive. By sunset, the 1st Infantry have...
Oh, we don't talk about that 150 Iraqis buried alive by those bulldozers. These small details are important, I think. What tactics did the Western powers use? No, it's not a war crime. I don't think so. I mean, they didn't surrender, but still, it's a very controversial thing to do in war.
Have broken through the Saddam line in multiple places, capturing 550 troops for only 2 casualties.
Only
With
two?
safe
What
lanes
the
marked through the
hell?
line, the armoured divisions begin to move up to the front, ready to begin their mighty punch into Iraq and Kuwait. While Schwarzkopf is happy with the almost unbelievable lack of casualties sustained on day
Yeah,
one,
it's crazy.
he is unhappy with the slow speed with which the French have advanced in the west, and 7 Corps in the centre. The rain and sandstorms have certainly slowed progress, but the common theme across the whole front is that the weak and unmotivated conscript divisions on the front line are surrendering in such high numbers that it is taking time to process them. But the invasion as a whole is still hours ahead of schedule, and most importantly, many of the coalition's armoured divisions will be across or crossing the minefields and the Saddam line during the morning of Day 2. The ground war of Desert Storm has got off to a near-perfect start, but in Day 2, the coalition will face motivated and armoured Iraqi opposition, including the respected Republican Guard.
I wanna find out that. I wanna know what happens. We should watch Day 2 of the ground war for sure. I want to. Put the comment if you want me to watch it. I wanna see it. This is fascinating. This is one of the most perfect US military victories, I think. So little casualties and so much prisoners taking so fast. Good job, America. Thank you, my friends, for watching. Thank you for getting the Estonian YouTuber Cup and the Estonian Soldier hat and maybe the fish shirt. Hey, thank you for getting those things. Thank you for becoming a Patreon. And as always, until my next video, stay cool and bye bye.